All right, Norman, that was a great conversation. It's time for the question. What have you got for me today?
Okay, so I've got a real interest in the whole sort of ocular vestibular type issue. I do quite a bit through the functional neurology courses I've done about how those things relate, and I was interested in how this sort of cleared vision that you talked about, and the optic nerve being related to the sort of occipital area and all the rest of it. Um, so specifically from the be activated, my question would be, do you have ideas about how you can work through visual field on yourself?
Oh, absolutely. And it's yeah, it's I think somebody has to understand the process of visual field to start with, um, before we say, okay, now work on yourself. So you actually have to have a base learning, but for sure, it's one of those things that's on my list. There's already a component that I've created where it is all the visual field that we do on a level 2. But the second component on it is, how do you test yourself? And it's I've got lots of different ways that I use to test myself. Um, and you've almost got to let go of the outcome when you test yourself, because you're kind of biased, and often like when we're working with a family member, you already know the answer. Well, your testing is going to be crap because you want to prove that you're right. Often when we're testing ourselves, we do the same, but the same rule for visual field comes up. So when you find an area of weakness, an area that the body is unable to hold a muscle test, or seems to have a disturbance. So let me just do a quick. So I'm not doing any testing. I would say, sitting here right now, my up, my down, very good. My right, very good. And it's probably because my right is so good that I'm seeing here that my left, I'm seeing there. My hand's too far. I couldn't even see that my hand was out of. So whereas my right is all the way back here, my left is here. So what I would do, if I'm knowing this, if I'm finding that would be something that I need to work on, I would now keep my visual field in that place where it's not right or it feels wrong, and I'd run through the activation sequence. And the idea would be, at the point that I need to find, that will shift. And that's what I'm looking for. The challenge becomes, we have clients that you see them get off the table and everything's different, and they don't feel it. Their awareness is not there. So you can't actually do that kind of a process with someone like that, because they need to reach a certain place within their physiology that they can bring that awareness to it. But yeah, it's a fun and exciting thing. I have lots of crazy stories, as you do, and one of them that's actually in the Australia Level 1 program. I actually put it at the end because I ran 4 days with a system that was toxic, because I had cut my foot on a reef before I went traveling. And I thought I'd cleaned it up properly. But the thing is, with reef injuries, that doesn't always happen. And so when you are traveling, so I first went to, I think I did Taipei 4 days, Indonesia 6 days, and then to Australia. And literally it was nonstop. There was no gaps. It was, I'd travel and I'd start teaching again. And I started to, in Jakarta, I started to see, like, there was a doctor on the course, and he's like, Doug, we need to sort that out. We might need to cut that and da 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 da. And I'm like, no, I'm going to sort this out. So I took pure tea tree oil and I poured it on my foot, and it was beautiful. But here, it's so funny what I remember. This is a long intro to a visual field thing, by the way. I remember pouring the tea tree oil, and it literally, like someone taking a needle up my leg, up through my thigh, up through my groin, up to my neck and down my arm. It was really weird. Remembering, and so my pattern is I had cut and I'd got an infection in my 333 leg pattern. So I already had a warning that something was going to go on here. That's what that was, I realized in hindsight. So I managed to sort it out, I thought. Then went to Australia, did 4 days, but by this point I already knew I could barely move my neck. So it's quite amazing, because if you're watching that level 1 program, and on the level 2, if I ever release it, you'll see how cleverly I move around something that can't move. So you can't even see it unless you're looking for it. It was cunning. But on my flight back, all of this stuff, like 25 hours of flying, it's not good if your system is vulnerable and weak, if it's tired, exhausted, I ended up 2 days afterwards in hospital with pain shooting down my arm and trying to explain to the doctors this is because of an infection in my foot. They thought I was mad. I went on to some really, really good drugs. Pethidine, mwah, beautiful. It makes you happy really quickly. But when I got out of hospital, the thing that was so interesting was I was struggling for about 3 days. And then eventually, like, Amy had gone out and I said to Matt, come, we need to play table tennis. We need to do something because something's wrong. And my whole visual field here down was gone. I actually, like, I picked up the table tennis bat and Matt goes, Dad, what's wrong? I go, I can't see the bat. I actually can't see. So I had to do this to see the bat. And then I realized, like, how in all of this, I'd triggered this whole visual field thing going down. So there at the table tennis table, and by the way, my arm was still hurting. It was better, but it was still hurting. And it turned out that my right calf point just switched on my visual field. Poof. So we played for about an hour, but within 2 minutes, all my arm pain disappeared too. And my arm pain was crazy, by the way. My arm pain was shifting and moving into patterns like it was like it was alive. And every time I moved, it would go different. And there was emotion. When it first went bad, I was sobbing and then laughing hysterically and then angry and going through. So it's almost like all of this allowed me to have this huge emotional release, because I was doing so much in such a compacted place with a body that was getting infected. And you kind of go, whoa. But when you start to realize, you can do something about it. And it was magical, because in our world, you can look back and go, oh, that's what happened. When I was in it, I didn't understand it, but I had to look back and track back, because actually I could have said my neck was locked and there was a nerve catching and that's what was going on. But it's not possible, because the kind of pain and the kind of agony that was going through my body was far more than that. But it then locked my visual field. And all of those things, the locking of visual fields and the shutting down, is part of our survival strategy. And so sometimes, you're doing your work, you're running through a sequence with someone without considering visual field. They stand up, they go, whoa, I can see better, I can see more. Well, that means there was a visual field involved. And sometimes you finish everything and that's not cleared. That's when we go to visual field. We don't start with it because it actually disrupts people. It's like, because I do get the question, can't we just start with visual field? And the thing is, like, yes, but how are you helping your client understand anything that's going on? Because if you start with the visual field, they learn nothing, which means our compliance, how can you be compliant if you don't understand? It's almost too crazy, too miraculous, too much stuff. And it's all entirely in you as a therapist. You did it. I don't want my clients believing that I did it. I showed you, I facilitated, you did it. But we can test ourselves and we can then work through it. And there are so many alternates and so many things. And it's quite interesting, because I will ask you this: would that be a worthwhile program to have?
It would for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a particular issue with it. and I've tried so many things. And unfortunately, because we've been locked down in the UK for most of the last 9 months, I've not been able to get to anybody else for them to work on me. And I've not been able to clear it on myself. And I literally, I can't look down here. I get very extreme responses when I look down here. I'm not going to look down.
Tell us what an extreme response is in your world, because I have my idea, but I don't know what is an extreme response for you.
So if I look down and left, and I first noticed it a couple of months ago when I was driving, and I usually drive an automatic, and I was in a geared vehicle, and I looked down at the gear knob. I had to pull over. I had to stop the vehicle. I had to pull off the road. I get like tremors, goosebumps, but tremors, like real physical response. A real, that sort of metallic taste you get when you get a real good fright.
Mm-hmm.
The tinny taste, I get that.
So can we try something very quickly? You're sitting, and you said you were sitting in the car, so you were sitting as well. So you don't like looking down and left. Don't you want to just stand up and look down and left and see if it's different?
Right.
Is that acceptable?
Well, you can give it a go. I can feel I've already got tingly fingers. Yeah.
So as bad?
Not as bad, but I do not like that.
Okay. So my interpretation of that would be that you look like you've lost your Zen Buddhist monk. He ran out the door.
Yeah.
So what I would say is probably historically in one of your traumas, in one of, whether it be you would probably have been in a seated position, and something quite dramatic would have happened coming up that way, because it's that bigger response. It's that bigger fright response. So if seated is more exaggerated than standing, it most likely happened in a seated kind of position. So that could be a kayak, sitting in a kayak. It's all of those things. So it's sometimes understanding a bit of that piece, and so that your brain then starts going, oh, well, I wonder if, and sometimes it doesn't give us any answers, and other times it goes, oh, I know exactly when this happened, and now we've got almost a different reference point or thing to grip onto, that when we're doing the work, so that we're almost telling the brain, we know where this started. It's kind of like you saying, you've looked back and your grandfather died when you're 8 years old, and and this seems to be when the pattern started. And so if we like unpack that a little bit, I'd go, well, that's interesting, because that's when you see the anger starting. But you did say you started playing rugby league at 5, and you were intense, and it's always so you had a pattern that then got exaggerated or amplified, is a better word, amplified, because of a stress. And then the more stress you put on, the more it amplifies. So the more deeply entrenched it becomes. But in those numb, disconnected places, we may miss a very clear incident or story where a pattern started up. But we can do something about that. And I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I certainly am in a place where, as I've said, I've got a new energy and I've got a new drive, and hell, I really enjoyed Saturday and all the lead up. It was a heck of a lot of work, far more than I anticipated when I started. I kind of thought, oh, this would be cool to share. Let me do this, let me do that. Friggin' hell, it was hard work, but it was fun hard work. And the important part is that it made a difference to the people who attended. And I think like I might go, yeah, this activation tool is amazing and does this. And I like the fact Carl obviously knows that, anything he says shall be shared in the world. His feedback was initially when I started sharing the Bungee and the activation tool, he thought it was a business strategy move because this is how do you get your business moving, launch something new. And I appreciated the fact that he shared that. And he said, but the minute you started, I realized you're sharing, you're full of your enthusiasm, and this is an intent to help people be better. But I want people to say, oh no, I think this is just you doing a business thing. No, this for me made a difference. So so visual field, if doing a visual field program is something as almost a standalone, is something important to do, I think we can do that. I like that.
Yeah.
Outstanding. So here's what I want to leave you on. Well, actually, no, you say what you're going to say. Then I've got a nice piece to leave you on for everybody.
It was only, the question was there because it was sort of crystallized in my mind from the weekend that we've now got this wonderful self-activation that we can do, but I really couldn't work out a way of being able to add the visual field to that as a self-activating thing. And because I've got that dream bit that I want to get rid of.
So it'd be really interesting if you put yourself in the Bungee, looked down, saw what it felt like. If it felt bad, you popped out, and then you did just the base stuff that we did very quickly in under 5 minutes with the tool in the Bungee, and see if it's different. Yeah. As in like, it's still not nice, but I'm not having as strong a response. So when we bring a strength to a vulnerability or to a threat area, it just becomes a vulnerability rather than a threat. Yeah. So here's my parting thought for you. You recognized while you were driving a stick shift vehicle that looking down, you couldn't even drive. What I scare myself with now and again when I'm on the road is people can't see shit. People really have no idea how little they can see and how shut down their physiology is. And then you add a friggin' mask. It's scary out there. The people, driving on the road is an act of faith. You're asking someone on the other side of the road that you don't know who they are to stay on their side of the road, assuming they are of, what do you say when you do like a will or something, sound, body and mind. I can guarantee you that if I were testing people to go and drive, I think 95% would fail the sound, body and mind test. So, yeah, when you get in your car next, we don't have to just fear that we're bad out there. Fear that they are out there. Don't fear anything. Norman, thank you. What a great pleasure talking to you, and thank you also short notice. It's I'm glad that we've managed to do this, and as I said a couple of weeks ago in my newsletter, call me delusional, but I'm looking forward to this year. I think it doesn't mean it's not going to be tough. It doesn't mean it's not going to be difficult, but we can choose. I can choose which Doug I bring to this day, to this moment. Nobody else can choose that for me unless I hand it over to them and say, tell me how to feel, tell me how to be, tell me what to do. I'm quite happy for someone to go, here are the limitations of the game we're in. And I go, cool, now that I know what the rules of the game are, where's my power? Where's what I can do? Where are the things that I can take control of? And the most important thing we can always take control of is this. Take control of it by learning more. Grow your database of experience. Open those little things where you go, whoa, check out all of this. It's possible, you know, and Norman, with you out there doing such great work, you're helping people do that. And I appreciate that.
Well, it's only happening because of you, Douglas, because I certainly don't think that the me that was doing this work 18 months ago, 2 years ago, was anywhere near as effective. I couldn't have been. I just couldn't have been. Not the way I was. I couldn't have been. Because I think to a large extent it was only me in that world. You know?
Well, you know, I suppose we were doing a goodbye, but that's a very important point, is when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, you are all alone. It's that simple. You are all alone. All of those places, survival places, aren't about team and family and friends. It's alone. And so if you're alone and your default is fight, well, everything is there to kill you. Everything wants to fight with you. How can I rest? How can I close my eyes? We've seen it in 100 movies where the cowboy or the Roman is sleeping with one eye open, watching, always alert. They're not resting, you know. And so but it's alone. And so it's, as we find our breath, as we step into our zone one, that is when we can find our ability to connect. And because we have less opportunity to touch and hold and the way we would want normally in the world, we've got to make sure that our connection is different, is stronger, is just by our sheer presence and our belief and our Zen Buddhist monk that we bring, that holds way more power than super angry, hardcore Norman.
I think my teammates of maybe 30 years ago would laugh if they saw me doing this now.
But you see, here's the beauty of it, is that it does not make you weaker. It makes you stronger. Absolutely. You know, and so it is a really interesting thing that I always love, is that it's not not doing this is not a weakness. It is a strength, because now the database in which you can operate and work is wider. You can connect with more people. You can love more people. You can heal and help facilitate more people. And so in the center of that, you have to be strong. So you have to take care of you, and, you know, and then of course, and then you walk with grace.
I'm doing that now.
Exactly. She's going, come on, Dad, you guys have spoken far too long. Time to go.
Get the dogs out.
Norman, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Have an awesome day.
And you.